Research completed in 2017 by the American Sociological Association shows that from 1967 to 2012, the percentage of 18 to 24-year-olds enrolled in college increased nearly 61%. In 1967, 25.5% of 18 to 24-year-olds were enrolled in college. By the year 2012, that number increased to 41%. As enrollment increased, the cost of higher education increased as well, while student aid stagnated. This caused students and their families to take on historic levels of debt to fund college going. Student debt has doubled in the past decade, topping $1 trillion in the aggregate, with the average college graduate debtor owing $30,000. Rising debt levels have fueled scholarly and public concern about the potential impact of student debt on the well-being of young adults. Many scholars have expressed concern that rising student debt is contributing to the boomerang generation of young adults returning home. Simply put, students have too much debt and do not earn enough after leaving college to live on their own. This epidemic may also be the cause of the increased vacancies of jobs in the trade field. According to a recent article from NPR, high school graduates have been so effectively encouraged to get a bachelor's degree that high-paid jobs requiring shorter and less expensive training are going unfulfilled. This affects those students and also poses a real threat to the economy. So if college is so expensive and is the cause of so much debt and struggle among young adults, why does college enrollment continue to increase? Are high school-age kids being pushed into college without a chance to explore other career paths that do not require a college degree? Jim Salmon is a home inspector and a radio host. He found success without going to college after school. Semmen believes that college isn't necessarily for everyone.
I think it's always been my contention, and I can apply it to myself, that not everybody should go to college. I couldn't wait to get out of school, and then I went back and tried a couple of semesters of college, and I just didn't like it. I was more of a hands-on type of person, and there are people that are more hands-on, that could learn a craft, an art, to be able to study plumbing, electrical, hands-on types of things that you don't learn in college, and you can make just as good a living or more than if you went for 4 years and then had all this college debt.
Fellow radio broadcaster and car dealership owner Dom Genova holds a master's degree in marketing. He believes college can be beneficial as long as there is a skill being learned that can be used in the workforce.
Well, the whole thing about education, there's two ways of looking at education. Education is supposed to teach you something you don't know, which is all well and good. But you need education that teaches you how to make a living also. So, I mean, let's put it this way. You can get an education in Russian history. And that's all well and good, and you're going to have a college degree, but there's very little job opportunity for somebody who has a degree in Russian history. Now, you're going to have big college debt, and you're going to have a very specific job that's open to you, but it's going to be very narrow. Where you could, you can get a job as a car mechanic, a technician we call them these days. You have very little debt, if any debt at all. You're making $60,000, $80,000 a year. You have a great life for yourself. You don't know a lot about Russian history, but you can actually make a life for yourself.
When asked why college debt continues to rise while so many trade jobs sit empty, Semmen believes that high schools as well as parents may be at fault.
This $1 trillion debt we have in our nation from college student loans was caused directly by eliminating shop class from high school. Home economics, that's another whole discussion. Shop class, metal shop, wood shop, all of that stuff. But taught people that really had hands-on skills when they were younger that, hey, I can be a carpenter, I can build stuff. But then all of a sudden your parents say, no, you have to go to college. So you go to college and you come out the other end with all this debt, and it's unnecessary. We need to get back to the basics. We need people to build things, and you can make just as much money as a plumber, an electrician, a mason, you know, as you can as a starting engineer or something like that. A lot of it's the fault of the parents, maybe not completely their fault, because they've been conditioned that if their kid doesn't go to college, they're not going to be successful, which is not true. And you go there and you go through college, which is for most people is a fairly good experience. You learn something, but when you first go in, you have no idea what you really want to do, and some people change it up and whatever. Next thing you know, you come out of there and you owe $40, $50, $100,000, and you can't get a job anywhere near what you were trained for or what you thought you were going to get based on what you studied in college.
Genova believes college can be beneficial as long as students come out with a marketable skill set and have a backup plan for success.
My daughter graduated with a degree in English. Now, a degree in English is really not marketable in and of itself. There's very few people who want to go out and have an interview for somebody to diagram sentences or know the works of Shakespeare or whatever. But what she did is she ended up going to law school and used the education she got being an English major to get a law degree, which is a marketable skill because there's people that need lawyers, and she's working for the Department of Justice now in Washington, D.C. So that's the difference between getting an education and getting a skill set. You can get an education, but it has to ultimately result in having a skill set that's marketable to somebody who's looking for a job. Now, you can go to BOCES or any one of these trade schools and get a degree in the trades and do very, very well for yourself. A plumber, electrician, a welder, they're all jobs that are going wanting. And we encourage people to go for the degree. Well, it's not the degree. It's having a marketable skill, and that's what I believe in, because there are a lot of people that I know working at the dealership for me now that have never gone to college, but they're doing very, very well for themselves. I have this expression too, not everybody you teach the piano to can make music. So we don't want to discourage you from trying to be a big league ball player, but you have to also understand that there are very few big league ball players, so you have to have your plan B. What if your dream doesn't come true, what are you going to do? Because we keep on telling our children, you can do anything you want to do. You can't do anything you want to do. I mean, I told my daughter, I said, you're never going to be shortstop for the Yankees. You're too short, you're the wrong sex, you don't have a big league arm, and Jeter's going to be there for a while. This is years ago. Yeah, but you can do what your talents are. So find out what your God-given talents are and exploit those talents, and also have a plan B. I mean, I wanted to be a vice president of Chrysler. I ended up being a car dealer. And it's a long story, but I ended up better off than I would have been.
Salmon also believes that it's tough for guidance counselors to push high school students into trade jobs because of potential backlash from the parents.
It's a two-edged sword, because the parents don't want to believe that the counselor's saying, your kid's not good enough to go to school, when actually it's not about that. It's about each individual and talking with him and whatever. I remember my guidance counselor back in 1960-something. He said, what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to be an astronaut. And his reply to me was, Jim, astronauts don't get C's. I don't know what to tell you. Well, he was right. And, one of my radio partners here for a long time said to me, I've never known anybody that made as much out of as little as you did. So, I'm glad that I was able to make a good living. I mean, this community's been really good to me, and I enjoy being a home inspector, but it's the pieces and parts and the 2x4s and the basement foundation and all that other stuff, which you're not going to learn any of that in college.
Dr. Kim Young is a professor at the College of Brockport. Before becoming a professor, she worked as a reporter and journalist both in radio and television. Dr. Young believes the college experience is so much more than just learning employment skills.
Going to college is an opportunity to really embrace all kinds of different disciplines, to look at the liberal arts, to look at science, to look at mathematics, to look at fine arts, all of those kinds of things, and expose yourselves to new ways of thinking about the world. And that's what higher education was always meant to be. It's a way to learn to think about things in new ways. Should all students go to college to find their path? Probably not. But I think at least opening the door to college for people provides just a long-term kind of place in the world.
Dr. Young says that people need to change the way they think about college.
in thinking about my own children, right, there was never any question that they would be going to college. And as there was none for me with my parents, it was just sort of an expectation. Having said that, that doesn't mean if any one of the three of my kids had decided that they wanted to take some time and didn't want to go, that I certainly would have supported that. But I think from an educator's perspective, again, I think we're looking at college in the wrong way. I think what people are thinking is that there's this sort of magical gift that you're given, keys to the kingdom, if you will, that once you transition from high school and you go to college, then the world will open up. And again, that's only up to you. And what I caution people about is that college isn't this panacea for a job. That's not what higher education was ever intended to be. Higher education is a place where you learn a whole lot about a whole lot, and not just this technical school. So I think we have to be really careful about the way in which we view higher education. It is a place where you learn many different things, least of which is about yourself, right, along the way.
Young does believe that there sometimes can be a stigma against people who work in the trades, and that stigma can be overshadowed by success.
Yeah, I mean, I think even a mediated image, I was talking about this with somebody, and there's the movie Grease, or the play Grease, and beauty school dropout. And so I think there is a sort of a segregated thought about that, tracking students one way or another. But I mean, I do think that there is somewhat of a stigma with that. But again, in the long run, does it serve that young person well to go off and learn a trade? Then all the better, because somewhere down the line, the people who stigmatized you because you went into trade school, you'll be charging them a whole lot of money to fix their toilet or fix their plumbing, or, so the joke's on them.
Genova says the only person that can make you feel inadequate is yourself.
I think a lot of people do that, but then that has to do with your own locus of control. That has to do with your sense of pride and your sense of self-esteem. And your self-esteem is dependent upon you. Your self-esteem is dependent on it. Nobody can make you feel, it's an Eleanor Roosevelt statement actually, nobody can make you feel inferior without your agreement. You have to accept that, and you have to feel that way. Now, my mechanic, who's 22 years old, didn't go to college, he's got a house and a boat and whatever. You know what? He doesn't need somebody else to validate this for himself. He's validating it here. In his heart, he knows, and somebody can say anything that they want about you, but if you take it to heart and you let it bother you, that's on you. That's not on them.
After 12 years of consistent schooling, it is only natural to want to take a break from the learning process. Semmen says students should take time to think about their next phase of life and not let themselves be pushed into college right after high school.
I guess if money's no object, and you're not going to come out with the debt. There are some families that can just pay for it and have planned for it or whatever. Okay, fine. But if you're going to wind up coming out of there not knowing what you're going to do really, not enjoying it, other things in your mind, why do that? Push back a little bit on that. Be sure that, go out and investigate some things, take some time. It's not right for everybody to just go to college right out of high school. Maybe you need a year to travel around the country or figure out who you are. So I think before you rush into that, you ought to really sit down and think it up. By 18 or so, you should be able to formulate a little bit of your own future in your head. So.
Dr. Young believes that college offers students a chance to grow as a person in general. She says that students are exposed to people that they may have never encountered without college, and this promotes diversity.
Many of the things that go on here at college are outside of the classroom. Many of our students come from places where people don't look anything but like them. So they're seeing every day of their lives, they're exposed to people who think like them, look like them, dress like them. And so when you come out of that environment, you're exposed to all kinds of different people who come from all kinds of different places. And what happens is your mind opens to new possibilities. And all of those perhaps stereotypes you've held of people that don't look like you, sound like you, talk like you, walk like you, think like you, maybe your mind then opens up to a rich experience of the world. And it is life-changing, and it matters.